Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gear Priority Podcast. I am your host, Justin, and today we are recapping a trip I just did where I fast-packed 60 kilometers over the course of 27 hours on the Rockwall Trail here in the Canadian Rockies. We're going to go over all the gear that I used, whether it worked well for me, whether it didn't work well for me, and whether I think fast-packing is something that more people should try and should be starting to hit the mainstream. So last week, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, I hiked the Rockwall Trail here in the Canadian Rockies. It's a 40-mile, 60-kilometer trip. Tons of elevation gain. And my goal, I've hiked this trail before. Most people do it in about 4 days, but I wanted to try and fast pack it. And to do that, I wanted to move at a quicker pace than what I would normally do. And that's essentially what I did. So you can see here I have on the map, for those of you who are listening, you won't be able to see the map, but basically you start at the north. I started at the north end of the trail and then just walked/ran my way to the south end of the trail. And my objective for this was to keep moving as quickly as possible without burning myself out. So I ran a lot of the flat sections and the down sections and then walked the uphills. Basically, I was running for probably a third of the trip. And on the second day, probably close to a third. It's like a quarter on the first day and then half on the second day, because there's a lot more downhill on the second day, but also a lot more uphill. You can see the elevation profile here. The first day was kind of a gradual up, so a little bit opportunity to run. And then day two started kind of at this midway point, and then do a little down, little up, and then a big down, and then a big up, and then a big down again. So I was able to run out that last bit for a good while, and that really helped with moving along the trail. I stayed at a midway point that was outside the national park. So this entire trail is in a national park, and you need to have reservations for all the campsites that are in the national park. But I stayed at a midway point called Wolverine Pass that was outside the park and allowed me to camp there without a permit. So and the Rockwall Trail, it's super busy. It books up like months and months in advance. So I wouldn't have been able to get a permit to do this trail without having, I wouldn't have been able to get a permit to do this trail basically. So being able to fast pack it allowed me to actually run the trail in the middle of summer without having to get a permit. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So that's one of the benefits of fast packing is it opens up opportunities like this for you. And I'll talk about some of the other benefits that I think fast packing has as we kind of go through the gear today and talk about what worked for me, what didn't work for me. So the people in the live stream, so this is being recorded as a live stream, and they voted on what category of gear we're going to talk about first. And that is going to be the big three. So I have my Pack Wizard gear list pulled up on the screen here. So for those of you who are watching, you'll be able to see it and kind of follow along. If you haven't checked out Pack Wizard, definitely go check it out. I'll have my entire pack, my pack list linked in the video description as well as the show notes. It's similar to Lighter Pack, but it has a ton of extra features. For instance, I can turn my pack list into a checklist, and this has been super useful for me as I plan trips. I would have forgotten a ton of stuff on different trips if I wasn't able to just go to view as checklist and then check things off. It crosses it off as I pack my pack. That's been super useful. And then if you're interested in my Rockwall Trail gear list and you want to kind of use it as a template for your own, then you can copy it to your own packs and then kind of tweak it. Something that's cool with Pack Wizard is if you go to add an item, it'll autocomplete. So if I start typing in XMID, it'll give me all the XMID options from our gear database. If I put in like Plex Solo, then Plex Solo is in my gear closet, so it'll auto-populate, autofill with that. It'll fill in all the weights, the prices, everything like that. It's been an awesome tool. Definitely go check it out. So we'll be following along through here as we go through all the gear. So starting off with the big three, I'll talk about maybe the pack last. So let's talk about the sleep system here. So as you can see, my pillow, I brought a pillow because I cannot sleep without a pillow, and I use the Trekology 2.0 pillow because it's the most lightweight pillow that I have, that still allows me to be comfortable on the trail. And then for a quilt, I brought Revelation from Enlightened Equipment. It was a 40-degree quilt, 950 power fill down, 17-year shell fabric, extremely lightweight. This thing this thing is yeah, pretty crazy. Let's look at some stats here. We got 394 grams. That's very lightweight. So you can see on the Light Equipment website here, just standard quilt. I got orange and gray because I don't know, I like those colors. And the 950 power fill down just allows it to compress a lot more and then be lighter weight for how warm it is. So that's why I went with that. And the same with the 7 denier shelf. And for my sleeping pad, this one's interesting. This one will probably be maybe a surprise to some people, but I went with the Big Agnes Zoom UL sleeping pad. And I have some thoughts on this sleeping pad because there's not a lot of information out there on it. And I've tested it out quite a bit now. I've been testing it out for several months. If you have questions, just throw them into the questions for the big three there. But I brought the Zoom UL because it's a very lightweight quilt, first of all, or sleeping pad, first of all. And then it's one of the more comfortable options out there as far as the lightweight ones go. The X-Lite is not very comfortable for me. The Nemo Tensor, not super comfortable for me either, relative to pads like the Zoom UL that have a quilted baffling pattern. I will say, though, that the Zoom UL isn't as comfortable for me as pads like the Etherlite XT or the REI Helix, and I think that's because the little dimples, like the raised bump area, I guess not the dimples, the raised areas in between the dimples don't compress as much, so they're not as kind of like springy, so they don't relieve as much pressure. So for that reason, I don't find it quite as comfortable, and then it's not as warm as comparable sleeping pads. I think the Zoom UL, I think, has a R value of let's take a look at the specs here. 4.3, but in my experience, it hasn't slept that warm out in the field. It slept probably closer to like a 3.2, and I think that's because of the way the insulation works. So it uses reflective insulation suspended in the middle, but everywhere that there's one of those there's a dimple punching through the sleeping pad, there's a hole in the insulation. I think a lot of cold air is coming up through that and then cooling me off. So I went with I went with the regular width 20-inch wide sleeping pad with the Zoom UL just to save on weight. And do have a question here from Counterfeit in the live stream. They asked if the 40-degree rating was good for the Rockwell night temperatures. Yeah, it was fine. It got down to about, I think it was like 10 degrees. So yeah, 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So it was warm enough for me. So let's just continue rolling through. If you have any questions about Big Three, drop them. So the other thing that I used was the Gossamer Gear Kumo 36 Fastpack, and I was very excited for this pack. It has a lot of features that I think are very cool. For instance, it has a lot of shoulder pocket options. It has side entry, side pockets. It has a big front pocket. Yeah, a lot of cool features, and it worked well. I wore it with the hip belt just to add a little bit more stability, as well as have hip belt pockets to store some things in. And it was very stable as I ran with it or hiked fast with it. So it was a great pack in that sense, as far as carrying goes. And I had about my weight was probably around like 12. I forget the exact weight. I can look on Pack Wizard. I can check out what my final weight was here. So it was about 14.5 pounds. So my base weight was 7 pounds, 7.7 pounds. Worn weight was like 0.75 pounds, and consumables was 6.13 pounds. So about like 14, just under 14 pounds for my pack weight. And it carried that weight well. It was probably a little bit more weight than I would have liked on this trip. I would have liked to be closer to 10, 12 pounds. But as we'll see, like I used a lot of very lightweight gear. And I don't know, it'd be really hard to get lighter with this. But some features I really liked. Let's go through some features I really liked about the Fastpack, and then some features I didn't like. First of all, this zipper on the side here was really nice. As a zipper on the left-hand shoulder pocket, I was able to store my phone in there. The other thing was that the pockets for water bottles on the shoulder straps were really nice as well. So I used soft flasks from Solomon for my water containers. They're about 490 milliliters. One of the ones that I used had a filter built into it, so I was able to just scoop it and then drink directly from that. Then the second one I used didn't have a filter in it, and that's where I put my electrolyte powders and things like that. And I was just able to squeeze water from the filter one into the other one. And these fit really well into the Gossamer Gear pack, into the shoulder straps, and I still had enough room for my phone and then some other items in the right-hand pocket. And on the right-hand pocket side, there's also a little kind of like stuffed garbage sack on the bottom, which was really nice. And then the carrying capacity were probably the things I liked the most about it. The things I didn't necessarily like about it were, first of all, the brain. It has like a flap that goes over the top, and that wasn't super great. I rather have a roll top. I just find roll tops just a lot nicer, and they can press down a lot easier. I didn't have the pack filled completely, so if I had been able to roll it down, it would have been a lot nicer. The other thing that I didn't like about it were the side pockets. I was very excited about having side entry, side pockets here, but that hole for the side pocket is just insanely small. I can barely fit my hand through it, and there's no way you're getting a water bottle in and out. The reason I was excited about it was for when I'm using this pack not as fast packing, just like regular backpacking, I'd be able to store like 1 liter water bottles in the side pockets there, and it would have been really convenient. But instead, I wasn't able to store really that much in there. I was able to have my bear spray on one side, and then that was about it. I would have liked if they had made the side pockets taller and then had those side entries a little bit bigger so you could fit 1 liter water bottles into there. It just would have been a lot nicer and more secure for things like bear spray as well. Yeah, that's the pack. I missed the tent, so let's jump into the tent. I used the Z-Packs Plex Solo tent. I was going to go with the Z-Packs Hexamid, which is basically just a tarp. It's like the Plex Solo, but doesn't have any mesh walls or a floor. You're just sleeping straight on the ground. And that tent's great if you're not expecting any crazy weather or bugs. But on this trip, I was expecting bugs. I just had a feeling that the bugs were going to be bad, and I was right. So it was nice to have that full enclosure, so I wasn't getting eaten alive by mosquitoes and like horseflies and stuff like that. But it added a lot of weight to my pack. If I'd gone with the Hexamid pocket tarp, my weight for my tent would have been cut in half down to about just under 200 grams instead of being 14 ounces or 395 grams for the Plex Solo. But I love the Plex Solo. It's a really robust tent, easy to set up, super lightweight. So it was a good compromise tent for this trip. So let's jump over. I'll pull up the lighter pack on the screen here, and so we'll answer some questions. Anyone that's thrown them in. So Steve Dawson asked, did you sacrifice some comfort in your big 3 for fast packing, or just since it was one night and you could deal with that? So on this trip, I did sacrifice too much comfort. Like the things I would have changed if I wanted to be more comfortable. I probably would have brought a 25-inch wide sleeping pad, and I probably would have brought the REI Helix sleeping pad. But the Zoom UL wasn't too much of a compromise. I still had a pretty good sleep. And then the Trikology 2.0 pillow is one of my favorite pillows out there. But the Exped Mega pillow is an insanely comfortable pillow, but it weighs 3 times as much. So I sacrificed a little bit, but not a ton. I could have sacrificed a whole lot more. For instance, if I had brought no pillow, that would have been a big sacrifice. I could have brought like an 1/8-inch sleeping pad and just slept on the ground on that. That would have been a big sacrifice. I could have dealt with the bugs and brought like a head net in order to deal with that, and gone with the Hexamid. So I probably could have dropped my weight by another probably few pounds off of my base weight, but I would have been a lot more uncomfortable. And I really just didn't want to sacrifice that much comfort. I wanted to see if I could fast pack without sacrificing a ton of comfort and essentially just living on the ground. So another question from Sean R. What non-DCF tent would you have chosen if you had to? So for this trip, I probably would have gone with the Six Moon Designs Lunar Solo. It's my favorite single pole ultralight trekking pole tent. It's similar design to the Z-Packs Plex Solo, but is made with Sil poly, so it's going to do well as far as like moisture management, dealing with rain, not stretching, and sagging. And that's about it. That's like there's not a ton of super ultralight non-DCF options out there right now. If you had water in the short pocket, was it difficult to drink? And the answer is no. With the Solomon flasks that I had, pull those up. They had just a little nozzle in there really close to my face, so I could just like lean my head down, bite the valve, take a sip of water, and it was really simple. That was not a problem at all. Junker Gem asked, was the Solomon bottles enough water? So there's a lot of water on this trail, and it was enough. Yeah, there's a lot of water as you go up and down, so I was able to fill up quite often. I'd camel up at certain spots. The bigger issue for me was just drinking enough water, so I did not drink enough water over the course of the trail, and that wasn't really a problem with water capacity. It was more just I just wasn't doing it, and I should have. Yeah, that's as simple as it is. So let's jump over to the next category, and that's the cook kit. Clothing is going to be a good one too. I have a lot of thoughts about the clothing. I'm gonna trigger another question for the cook kit, so throw that if you have it. But I had a very lightweight cook kit. You can't really get much lighter than that. So first of all, I used the BRS 3000 stove, the tried and true BRS 3000, 25 grams, insanely lightweight, and just works. I've had the same one for years now, years and years and years, and it's still going strong. You just really can't beat it. So there's not much to say about that. For the pot, I used a newish pot for me on this trip, and that's the Tope's Light Titanium 550 milliliter pot with no handles. So I went with no handles because the handles, they weigh 12 grams. So that's quite a bit more weight than I used. And I haven't added electrical tape or silicone tape to my 550 light pot with handles. So the handles get really warm, and then I burn myself, and adding the tape would just add a lot of weight. So in order to deal with that, because this pot's light, 43 grams for the pot, and then 62 grams with the lid and the pot. So that's very lightweight. So in order to lift the pot off of the stove and then pour it into my freeze-dried meal bags, I use the Mixa pot lifter from Sulik 46. This is a new item for me. I got the carbon fiber version, and it is insane. This thing is so lightweight, but works so well. You're able to grab the pot by the edge and then just lift it up and pour things into it. You can't use the ultralight version with big pots, like a liter pot, but with the lightweight pots, 550, 650 milliliters, it's going to work no problem. And this thing weighs only 3 grams, 3.2 grams for the carbon fiber version. So you're saving 9 grams compared to the arms of the version that has the pot version that has arms on it, which is decent. Every little bit adds up, right? I could have just cut my arm hair off, and that would have made the same amount of weight, but that would have been a little bit more annoying. And then for my spoon, obviously I used a pink titanium spoon. Really helped out on this trip. I was able to cover more miles because of it and get a lot more nutrients out of my food. So that was a really nice addition. And I used an Ursack in order to store my food because I was in grizzly bear country, and yeah, I didn't want to be messing with grizzly bears. So I was carrying my Ursack, carrying bear spray. That added quite a bit of weight to my total base weight. It would have dropped by a pound or more if I didn't have to carry those two things. But I didn't want to mess around with bears. So the Ursack's tried and true. I've used in the Rockies a whole bunch, and it's just a nice way to get the food away from me and into a safe place. So let's see if anyone has any questions from the live stream. Steve Dawson, do you find most fastpackers cold soak, and what would you say is the weight difference between what you did versus what you would have cold soaked? Great question, Steve. So this was something that I considered whether I wanted to do no cook or cold soaking. So cold soaking would have probably involved bringing a couscous mix and then soaking it in some sort of jar, and then no cook would have been just eating more bars and just generally no cook pre-wrapped meals. and I just really wanted to have a hot dinner, to be honest. I think next time I did this, I would probably have I'd probably try a no cook meal, probably not cold soaking. Cold soaking is just a little bit of work for me, and you still have to bring the jar and stuff like that. So I'd probably try no cook, and that would save me let's jump over to the thing here. And so with my pack, my cook kit was probably about less than a pound. So I would have saved a little bit of weight going no cook, not a ton, and I wouldn't have had that hot meal. Mark asked, are you going to add links to these? So if you go to packwizard.com and check out, or at the link, if you go to the link in the video description or the show notes and go to my Packwizard gear list, it has links to everything. If you want to check it out, you just click the little kind of like circle icon there next to the gear, and it'll take you to the item. That's probably the easiest way. You could also go to packwizard.com/user/Justin Outdoors, and it'll show you all of my gear lists that I've ever made and made public. Because with something cool with Packwizard is that you can check out other people's packs. So there's a public pack thing here. There's 36 packs in there right now. You can tag the trail location, price, base weight, sort through. All the packs right now are from me. So if you have some packs you'd want to share, I'm sure the community would be very thankful for it. But you can also just go to, if you go to my profile, you can see the link, Justin Outdoors, user/Justin Outdoors. You can see all the packs that I've made. So that's just a little thing there. Let's jump back to the live chat, see if there's any other questions. You guys just start using the Q&A forum, eh? So we're gonna talk about backcountry today. 6-9 asked a question: what do you suggest for calorically dense food that is ultralight? Did you add any oils? So I didn't add any oils or get like too crazy as far as the food that I was thinking of. I just went with things that I know, like things that are nutty are going to be high in calories. And I wanted carbs as well. I didn't want to just go with like fat. Fat has more calories per gram than protein or carbs, but I didn't want to go with like a pure fat diet. I wanted the carbs, and because of that, I wasn't going with like a super efficient like calorie per gram system. I try to avoid like fillers and things like that, but yeah, I think I did pretty good with the food that I brought. Generally bars, nuts, sesame seeds, some fruit bars for like quick energy, things like that. So let's jump through electronics quickly here. We're gonna go through some of the items. So first of all, NU25 headlamp. This is a pretty heavy headlamp considering everything. I could have just brought like a flashlight. It would have been a lot lighter, like the what's it called, Rovivon A5 flashlight. That would have been great. But I was thinking maybe if I wasn't moving fast enough, I'd have to hike at night, because I started this trip at 11:30 a.m. So I only had the afternoon to get to that midpoint campsite. So I thought if I'm going to be hiking at night, I want a headlamp like the NU25. It has 400 lumens. It's very bright. And yeah, I brought it more as a just in case. I was kind of packing my fears with that one. And then I also brought the InReach Mini 2, just in case I ran into trouble. I probably didn't need this. It's a very busy trail, but I, again, just didn't want to be messing around. I just always like having the security of having InReach. And then probably the most important piece of electronics that I brought with me was my Garmin Enduro 2 watch. So this is my kind of everyday wear watch. It's it's a pretty solid watch. It will do anything that you want it to do, basically. But what I really use it for on this trip, not necessarily navigation, because that's usually what I use it for. It has on-device maps, and I can navigate, see where trails work and things like that. But it was for monitoring my heart rate and my pace, because with those two things, I was able to kind of make sure that I wasn't wearing myself out. So I'd run for anywhere from about like 15 to 30 minutes. I think the longest period of time I ran was for about an hour. And once my heart rate got up to about 150, that's when I'd start walking again, either at 150 or if I hit a hill or something like that, I'd start walking. And then I'd let my heart rate come down to 120 and then I'd start running again. And so it kind of ended up being like good chunks of like 15 to 30 minutes of running, like 10 to 20 minutes of walking. And I was able to kind of do a good mix that way. It was it was a really crucial item. I think I would have probably burnt myself out if it wasn't for using the Enduro 2 watch. So yeah, not a lot of electronics. I didn't bring a battery bank, even though I was filming the trip. I didn't need it because I was filming on a GoPro, which I just had on my trekking pole, and that was no problem. Brought 2 batteries, one for each day, and it lasted the entire time. So we got some questions from the live chat. K-Man asks, have you tried the new NU25 with a lighter strap? Yes, that's the one that I used on this trip. I actually, I don't have it near me right now, but I added a lighter strap that's similar to the old like Lightsmith mod that I had on my previous NU25. I just find it a little bit more comfortable and easy to use. So if we hop over to this one, you can see that it has like 2 straps that go all the way around with the NU25 UL, the new one. I made it so that it connects like 1.5 inches. The 2 straps on the one side join together about 1.5 inches from the headlamp, and then it's just one strap the rest of the way. It makes it a lot more comfortable, I find. Brent Fong asked, did you use the calorie counter on the watch? So I did track my calories. I did take a look at what actually how many calories I burned. I can pull that up right now though. Let's take a look. I'll sign into Garmin Connect. See, I'm trying to remember which day it was. Probably let's take a look. Okay, it's these 2 days. Let's take a look at 2 days. See what the calories are. So day 1 was 3,000 calories of physical activity. So I probably ended up burning about 5,000 plus total calories that day. And then day 2 was 3,500 calories. So a little bit more effort on that one. Yeah. So that's the electronics. Let's jump into some miscellaneous items. Before we get into clothing, you guys want to know about bidets. I've been hearing some bidet questions as well. So let's talk about bidets. I use the Kulo Clean on this trip in order to clean up downstairs after going number 2. It's my favorite way. I just I basically just put soap in one hand. So I use the Peak Outdoors powdered soap to get a little lather on one hand and then reach back and clean up. And then I rinse my hand off and then wash my hands and then use either air dry as I'm kind of like washing my hands and letting things just kind of dry off. then by the time I'm done washing my hands, the backside's usually dry. Otherwise I use a Kula cloth in order to dry it up. And then for trowel, I use the Bogler trowel. It's the lightweight trowel, has serrated edges, cuts through roots really well. We have a lot of roots up here in the Canadian Rockies, so this is a great trowel. And then I used unpaste toothpaste tabs. So I was able to bring, I only needed 2, I guess, on this trip. So I was able to bring just as many as I needed, and and brush my teeth, no problem. So I got a couple of questions. Got garage drawn gear up in the house here, so that's awesome. And then we got got a question about the meal that I used while I was out on the trip. So I used the pretty much brand new ReadyWise Pro meals, and it was good. I had the chicken pot pie, really tasty. Chicken pot pie is actually one of my favorite meals back home too, and it tasted pretty much the same. They just kind of have like biscuits as for the crust, but the crust was like nice and tasty, and the chicken was good, and the sauce was on point. I've had a couple of other meals, and they're also really good. So excited to kind of round out trying out all of the ReadyWise Pro meals, because so far I've been really, really impressed. First name asks, Do you use the bidet for your backside and later use it to brush your teeth? No, that's not how I roll. So let's jump over into clothing, because clothing was kind of an interesting one on this trip. So if you can see I brought a lot of other miscellaneous items as well. I had like a ditty bag, toothbrush, lip chap, sunscreen, a Swedish cloth for wiping things down, earplugs, first aid kit. There's a lot of other things that I brought with me. I'm just kind of glazing over them because they're not super important, and they're things that you'd bring on any trip, whether it's a fast packing trip or not. So for clothing, probably the most interesting one was the rain jacket, but we'll talk about that at the end. It only weighs like 3 ounces, which is pretty crazy. For my footwear, I used Hoka Speed Goat 5s. So these are just like an all around awesome shoe. They've been my go-to shoes for years. I hiked the entire Great Divide Trail with the Speed Goat 4s, and then with the Speed Goat 5s, I find them there's some things with them, but like the little flip up back just kind of funnels rocks into your heel sometimes. But the grip is awesome with them, and the cushion is awesome with them. Actually, no, sorry, I did not use the Speed Goat 5s. I was planning on using the Speed Goat 5s, but I used the Tecton X from Hoka. So the Tecton X is kind of like a Speed Goat 5, but it's made for like more like race performance. It's more of a performance shoe. It still has a lot of cushion, but then it has a carbon fiber plate through the bottom. And this is the new X2 version. I just had the regular X version, but it still has a Vibram Mega Grip sole, a lot of the great things that the Speed Goat 5 has, but just a little bit more geared towards running and performance activities. So that's why I use this one. And then for my socks, I used the Exoskins toe socks. So these are great toe socks. They don't stink as much as Injinji's for me. They are more durable than Injinji's for me, and just as comfortable. So I've been loving these socks. I've had one pair for over a year now, and like thousands of kilometers, and they're still going strong. So that's been pretty sweet. And then for my top layer, I use the Outdoor Research Echo sun hoodie. So this only has an SPF of 15, this sun hoodie, but that seemed to be enough for me. Like, I didn't get a sunburn or anything like that. I thought maybe I would because it was super sunny. I was in the Alpine. But it's a little bit more lightweight than the Astroman that I usually use for hiking. So that's why I went with that, a little bit more breathable. And I used a few different things I used a few other things. I had shorts from Decathlon that are just like trail running shorts, were really nice. I used the Patagonia Ultra Alpine down sweater, 150 gram down sweater, which is super comfortable and keeps you warm. And then a merino wool hat. And then I used the Rab Phantom Anorak rain jacket. So this is just a pull-on rain jacket. Only weighs 89 grams for the size medium, and it's insanely lightweight. It's not going to like be the best protection in an insane storm, but it'll protect you from the rain, keep you warm. And I've had it in the rain, and it worked. I wouldn't bring it if I knew there was rain in the forecast, but on this trip there was no rain in the forecast, so that's why I brought the Rab Phantom one. So let's get to some questions. Steve asked if Pack Wizard is my creation. Yes, I'm partnered with someone else, and we're co-developing it. They're doing the development side of things, and then I'm doing a bunch of other things that are kind of in support of the like coding, because I can't code, but I can talk about the product. I can help with the technical details around gear, and things like that. So that's we're working on it, and I'm pretty happy where it is right now. It's a pretty cool product. I use it every single day. Derek asked, is merino wool still a thing? Kind of. I use it for my sleep systems, but that's about it. I don't like it for any activities where I know I'm going to be encountering a lot of moisture, like if it's raining or if I'm sweating a whole lot. Like if I'm hiking, I don't want to be wearing merino wool necessarily, but for sleep systems, I really like it. Counterfeit asks, what night clothes did you use? So I just slept in my underwear. So I used the Exo Skins boxer briefs, and then I slept in my Echo Sun hoodie. So I didn't bring anything different for sleep system or sleep clothing. Goodle who, did you train with a pack in preparation for your trip? I train a lot. I mentioned in the video that I do kind of three main things for training that I think helped out with a trip like this. The first one being just like getting in steps, whether that's through running or walking. The second one is strength trainings, but doing things like squats, compound lifts, hip thrusters, step ups. The third one is training my feet, and that's wearing barefoot minimalist shoes as much as possible. Things like Lems, Zero shoes. Those two are my favorite. So whenever I'm walking the dog or walking around town, I'll wear minimalist shoes, and that helps strengthen my foot so that it's not going to get as fatigued when I'm out on trail. So those are the things that I do in order to train. I don't necessarily like throw on a weighted vest or a pack or something and like run around. But sometimes I'll do. I go on a hike pretty much every single week for at least one day, sometimes 2 or more days. So I'm out carrying a pack quite often. I just finished a trip where I carried a 55-pound pack, so that helped quite a bit with strengthening my legs. Hike my own hike asked, Echo compared to OV altitude. Haven't tried the Outdoor Vitals Sun hoodie yet, so not quite sure. So I do have some thoughts on fast packing that I want to share with you guys, because one of the things that I wanted to see with this trip was, like, is fast packing something that I want to try more often? Do I think it's feasible? Do I think it's in a place where it's accessible to more people? Because you don't necessarily, like, fast packing isn't necessarily about just like running the trail all the time. I think it's more about efficiency on trail. So you're hiking at a faster rate because you're not stopping as much. You're hiking you're hiking maybe for longer periods of time potentially, but not necessarily. Like I said, like I was able to start my trip at 11:30 a.m. and then finish 2:30 the next day. I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't be able to do that if I wasn't fast packing. So it opens up some options in that way. So I think it's about efficiency and pace. But I think the big limiting factor right now is the weight of the gear. I don't think we're quite at a point yet where the gear is light enough to be really comfortable out on trail unless you're doing no cook. I think that, like, unless you're doing no cook or you're a sucker for punishment. Like if you don't bring a sleeping pad or a pillow and things like that and just sleep under a tarp on the ground, then you're going to be able to have a very low weight. But the fact of the matter is that I like to be comfortable, so I was bringing gear as light as I could get while still being comfortable, and I still found my pack slightly heavy. I was able to move pretty quickly, but I would have liked my pack to be a little bit lighter. And I think for most people out there, having a 14-pound pack for a trip like this is probably going to be a little bit too heavy once you start running and getting tired and moving through some of the more difficult terrain. So I'd love to, but I don't necessarily know where the weight's going to drop off. Like if I look at my Pack Wizard pack here, like my packet and water bottles are a decent amount of weight. Like a lighter weight pack, something in the 300 gram range, would drop off quite a bit of weight. And then other than that, like maybe some weight off of my sleeping pad. Not having to bring bear gear would actually be a big deal as well. Like I said, that'd be a pound. So if you went no cook, no bear stuff, if you were down in like the desert, then yeah, pretty feasible. Like I would say, like you could have a really good fast packing pack that's going to be comfortable, and you could try it out, and it's going to be no problem. Up here in the mountains in the Canadian Rockies where we have bears, and bugs, it's a little bit of a different story. So I think it's almost there. Like a few more years, a few more innovations, a few more pieces of lightweight gear, and I think it'll be a very accessible sport or like option for people who want to cover a lot of distance very quickly. And I mentioned in the video that one of the big benefits that I think with fast packing is that maybe you can only get out for a weekend, but you want to cover this trip like I did that most people do in 4 days. You can do that if you are moving at a fast packing pace, which you wouldn't be able to, it opens up a lot more options for trips for you. And one of the things I wanted to see on this trip was whether I felt rushed or that I wasn't able to stop and smell the roses, things like that. But I don't feel like I missed out on the views or anything like that. Like I stopped a few times, like multiple times, like every single day to look at waterfalls or literally smell flowers or take in the views. I didn't stop for long periods of time, but long enough to like garner an appreciation for those things. Some people, that might not be for them. They want to stop and like stare at a mountain for 2 hours in the middle of their day. Like that's fine. That's cool. I enjoy that too, but I also really enjoy seeing a lot of things and moving quickly. Part of the thing that I like about hiking and backpacking is the physical exertion and the physical challenge. And with trips like this, I find I'm moving the needle for myself, and it's a really fun way to kind of push myself and test myself. So let's jump into some questions and see what you guys have to say. I'm gonna stop the recording for the podcast now. No, we'll keep it going. Maybe some of these questions will be good for people, and we can have some more chats. Steve, what is your average weekly miles non-trip to keep yourself trip ready and in trip shape? Miles, I'm not sure. I run probably about like 20 miles plus a week, and then hike or walk probably another like 10 to 15 miles. So that's not a ton, but it's a decent amount. How come they don't make small stove canisters? Good question, Mark. Like a 50 gram canister. I think part of it is you start getting into diminishing returns as far as like how thick the walls of the canisters need to be in order to contain the gas. So like you'd probably only lose the weight of the gas, not necessarily the weight of the canister. So you might not lose a ton of weight with that. Edwin keeps calling me Justin Indoors. I don't know why, but maybe they'll explain it to me someday. Every single comment and now in the live stream. How did you keep your camera gear weight down? So I just brought a GoPro that was attached to the top of my trekking pole, and I just kept it there the entire time. So it was really, really easy. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, drop them in the live stream. We'll keep this rolling. How long have we been going for? I can't see anything anywhere. 50 minutes. Oh, that we've been going for a while, but happy to answer any questions about Fastpacking. I do have some thoughts as it relates to ultralight backpacking, because I think one of the big benefits of ultralight backpacking is being able to move faster and kind of enjoy your time on trail. And I think that's one of the things that fastpacking kind of like, there's other benefits to fastpacking that aren't the same as ultralight. Like with fastpack, I think the benefits are being able to move quickly and see a lot and do trips that you wouldn't be able to do. Whereas with ultralight, I think you're just more comfortable on trail, and that may allow you to cover more distance and move quicker, be less injured, but it's not necessarily like the objective of ultralight, if you know what I mean. And I think with ultralight these days, depending on what your definition of ultralight is, I'm probably gonna do a video on this because I have a little bit of a rant on what is ultralight and whether ultralight is like, whether if you bring a pillow, if you bring a chair, are you an ultralight backpacker, or are people gonna poo-poo on you for those two things? And for me, I'm thinking that ultralight is a constantly evolving term. The outdoor industry is sometimes pretty resistant to new things and change, and I think a lot of people think like if you're ultralight, you have to be sleeping under a tarp on a thin mat and be uncomfortable. Whereas I think you can be ultralight, bring a chair, bring a pillow. I'm putting together a gear list right now that's ultralight with a chair and a pillow and a lot of other luxury items that comes in under that like magical like 10 pounds that people consider kind of the cutoff for ultralight. I think ultralight's more of a mindset and an approach, because you could be down in like Texas during a time of the year when it's like 60 degrees at night, and you're gonna have a completely different set of gear requirements than in the Canadian Rockies in the springtime. And I think you can have an ultralight approach to both those areas, but you're gonna have completely different weights. So that's some of my thoughts on ultralight backpacking, and I think it kind of applies a little bit to Fastpacking. Like I was saying, with my Fastpacking pack, I had to bring bare gear, whereas in other parts of the world, you may not need to, and that's going to save you over a pound, which is going to be a lot of weight. Brent Fong asked, is Fastpacking going to be in regular rotation in your hiking future? I think so. I surprisingly, like, I thought after doing the, like, before I did the trip, I thought it might not. It was going to be kind of just like a test thing, but I really enjoyed it. And I think part of that was I didn't put any pressure on myself to like have to run a certain amount or like do anything like that. It was just about trying to move as efficiently as possible, whether that was through running or hiking. And I accomplished that, and I really enjoyed it. So I think I will be doing more Fastpacking. I have a couple of trips that I'd love to Fastpack this summer, North Over Ridge, and then there's another one as well. So I'm going to try and do that. Summer's running out. We're at the beginning of August already, and the snow starts flying in the Canadian Rockies here in September. But I think it's going to be. I think Fastpacking is going to be something that's going to be part of my rotation. I'm going to try and dial my gear in a little bit more. I think the pack isn't. I think it's the best pack on the market for me right now, but there's some tweaks to it that I'd like to see. So for now, I'll be using that pack for my Fastpacking trips. But I think down the road, if something that fits my needs better comes along, then I'm gonna probably add it in there. Someone asked if there's any like gear regrets or anything that I had for this trip. Nothing really that like I regretted. I wish the Zoom UL was a little bit more comfortable. I think I liked the 20. Something I was reflecting on was, do I like the 20-inch Zoom UL more or less than a 25-inch wide X-Lite? And I think I like the 20-inch wide Zoom UL more than the 25-inch wide X-Lite from a comfort standpoint. Zoom UL is not nearly as warm, but that's kind of beside the point. Like I said, I'd love to try no cook in the future. I loved having meals out on this trip, so that was awesome. Like, I liked having a hot meal, and the hot meal that I had was delicious. That ReadyWise Pro chicken pot pie, and yeah, I think I'd try no cook in the future. Maybe try my Speed Goats instead of the Tecton X's. Other than that, like, my kit was pretty dialed in. I'm going through looking at it right now on PackWizard, and yeah, looks solid. So probably wouldn't really change much other than the no cook. You can see here, if you're looking online, you can see like with PackWizard you can have different tags and stuff, and you can tag the trail. That's just through the edit tags feature here. So you can change the duration, season, the trail. There's a bunch of like pre-populated trails. You can put in custom ones if you want to, and then add some tags like whether you're Fastpacking or hunting or rock climbing, running, and then you can make it visible or not, so that shows up as a public pack so other people can check it out. So good old who. So I have the Volpe Fastpack, and the issue that I have with it is that the shoulder pockets don't hold soft flasks well enough for me. They bounce around, that they kind of stick out a little bit. So it's not doesn't work quite as well for me for running, but is a pretty good pack for like hiking quickly, fast hiking. Yeah, if there's any running involved, it doesn't quite work for me. Any other questions? Let's Shot, are you gonna try the crotch pot next time you Fastpack? I need to get my hands on a crotch pot. I don't know if they even exist anymore, so who even knows? But all of links to my full gear list, my through PackWizard in the video description and the show notes. I'll also have a link to the podcast. This is going to be posted as a podcast over on the Gear Priority Podcast, which is my podcast I do every single week. Deep diving into gear. I've had some awesome guests on there so far. If you like nerding out about gear, definitely go check the podcast out. So both those links will be in the description. If you want links to any of this gear, then that will also be through the PackWizard list as well. You can click the little kind of oval thing on the side, and it'll take you to wherever you need to go in order to check out that piece of gear for yourself. thanks everyone for stopping by the live stream. Really appreciate it, everybody. And we'll talk to you on the next one.